Hello again with another sheaf of questions. I'm going to go through them a bit quicker now and see if this works. First of all, the safe place coming to the present. Feet on the ground. This is to the point. First question from Mia Rose. Any advice for living in the present? Putting yourself in God's hands. There's no time like the present, Mia. But our trouble is that we're absent. So it's practice, my dear. Practice, practice, practice. When I first was given this practice, I had a lot of stickers. I put them up all over the house, in the bathroom, in the kitchen, at my table, wherever I could think of it. Tied a knot in my handkerchief, had a little thing in my purse. Remember, and of course you still forget, but little by little it sinks into our heads to be present. Practice, my dear, practice your whole life long. And then that's the only way I know. Practice. Practice makes perfect. Then you'll be able to step out into the peace on my own without having to refer to other teachers and recipes all the time. Luca Kappa asks, do you think it's a good thing to pull the unknown into the world of man? Well, Luca, just standing here, if you're present, doesn't it happen naturally? Who knows what the present is? What is spirit? What is silence? What is peace? If you look at this as the world of man, that we think we know, and that as the unknown, well, is it a good thing? Well, I feel better when I connect with the unknown. I feel peaceful, don't I? I feel expanded. So instead of saying, is it a good or bad thing, I suggest try it yourself and see if you feel better. If you do, do it. Rebecca asks, what of the divine nature in art and music? Well, if you find it there, good luck to you. Make the most of it. Some people do indeed find it in art. Some people prefer nature. Wherever you find it, dear, drink of the fruits thereof, for they are sweet. This is a good one. Erin Roark, my 5-year-old daughter, asks me the difficult question. If we just die, why are we even here? What's an appropriate response to a 5-year-old? Brilliant. I'd ask a 5-year-old. So I'm trying to tell her, Jesus tells us to be like little children. Maybe as we grow old, we fall. We don't become wiser, we become more stupid. Well, I wonder what you could say. Maybe it's to learn why we die. Now, never too young to start asking yourself that question. Why do we die? Now, that's the way to lead on to finding the answer, isn't it? Then maybe you won't die. So I'd ask the child, why do we die, Mummy? Why are we born if we just die? To find out why we die so that we don't die. Mando, or Mardo, I think. Could you address the PTSD, that's post-traumatic stress disorder, that plagues many young men and women? Any tips beside a therapist? How should I know, my dear? I'm not too keen on therapists, though I'd rather just be present. Do you know, it's almost unimaginably simple how just to be present brings the mind to rest. And all the tension in life, just like traffic on the road, it just passes. Doesn't it? This presence is eternal peace. You don't get rid of these things. You don't get rid of the traffic or get rid of the waterfall just down there. You just, as it were, step back from one's holding on to it and discover this, the reassurance of presence. Look at my hand. Let go. Feet on the ground. Listen and look. And immediately, right in the middle of a battlefield, you're at peace. And all the crazy people in the world can't disturb it. Tom asks, can you elaborate a bit on your statement that things like coronavirus don't exist in the real world? And what is the real world? I'd like to have better understanding of this. Reality. Well, as an idealistic young man, I remember people, responsible worldly people like my father, saying, when you come into the real world, then you'll begin to be responsible. And so at every stage of our life, we tend to look down on those who haven't reached that point of maturity and say, when you discover the real world. So what is the real world? Well, it's a step-by-step progression, isn't it? Look, imagine you're climbing a mountain. At the bottom, it's real enough, isn't it? You look up there, my God, I've got that mountain to climb. When you climb up, at each level, you see a different level of reality, don't you? Or when you go up in an aeroplane, at first the world below seems real, doesn't it? And then up you go, above the clouds. Isn't that real? Different levels of reality. At this level, coronavirus and all the other plagues of the flesh exist. Do they exist up there? And what are we going to call reality? It depends how we live. And if you've got any interest in spiritual work, you realize that spiritual work is simply rising in consciousness. Rising in consciousness from the dis-ease, from the what's the word? I used the phrase earlier, plagues of the flesh, didn't I, down here, to the perfect wholeness of spirit. Here, life tends to be all wrong. There, it's all right. The kingdom of God, it's called. B.H. writes, he or she's obviously got a pretty good life. Then I'm reminded of the evils, child abuse and all the suffering world. Makes me feel so helpless. Why should half the world be suffering and the other half not? Indeed. Well, maybe if you wait a bit, you'll find you're suffering. We all tend to go up and down. Dear, how do I know the answers to these things? But in the almighty dispensation, these things happen, don't they? Maybe all things are for our benefit and for our learning, if only we could see it. We don't at the time. I remember as a young man, when I had a career in business, I had enough money, life seemed to be mapped out. And I remember looking at these pictures of the starving children in other countries in the world. I couldn't live with it. I gave up my job. I went out to South America, do what I could about it. While I was out there, I learnt the great lesson to make whole, be whole. I never did go back to a comfortable career and plenty of money, but I learnt to meditate. And soon after I learnt to meditate, I began to realize that this was the most helpful thing I could do for the world. Why? Because as that little saying says, to make whole, be whole. And by raising consciousness, you see, you rise through this level of the plagues of the flesh, to use the same phrase, to freedom. And when you discover it in yourself, then you begin to realize it in everybody, and the whole consciousness of the world is raised. This is the great work of self-realization. Enough? But one more. Enough. Phil says enough. Okay. Enough for now. Hope it's been useful. Come back to the stillness. And when I come back to stillness, you can see, hopefully, that this itself really is the answer, not only to the plagues of the flesh, but to the plagues of the mind. Because you come into a dimension, you see, where it's totally okay. And there's nothing wrong at all. And everything is perfect. Bye-bye. God bless you. Until another day.